way of dividing motion, of measuring motion. But it so happens that these social institutions become so convenient and so useful that we start to mistake them for the real world. And that can lead us into an enormous amount of confusion. The same sort of confusion from which you would suffer if, for example, you started eating the menu instead of the dinner. And we must recognize that a great many things that all of us take for solid realities are in fact nothing but social institutions. They are conventions. For example, your idea of yourself, of the ego. The ego is not a biological existence, it is a social institution. Because you see, when we speak of social institutions, we are not simply speaking of things like hospitals, law courts, legislative bodies, public health systems. Included among social institutions are such things as the clock, the calendar, weights and measures. Now, as we civilize ourselves, we can only do so through social institutions. In other words, if we didn't have a calendar, if we didn't have an idea of the directions, north, south, east, and west, if we didn't have these ideas, we couldn't get on together. If we didn't have agreements about the nature of language, we couldn't communicate with each other. And if I didn't know about time and space, I couldn't say, I will agree to meet you at the corner of State and Madison at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And therefore, we could never find each other. But because these institutions are so useful, we come in due course to believe in them, as I said. And above all, we come to believe in ourselves as equivalent with the role we are playing in life. Confucianism was deeply concerned with roles. What is the proper role of a father? The proper role of a mother, of an elder brother, of a younger brother, of an elder sister, a younger sister, and so on all the way around. And you know how it is in our own life. We are all role-playing. We play roles according to our occupation in life. We also play roles with respect to our characters. There are certain social kinds of role, for example, which it is acceptable for men to play. There are certain roles which men ought not to play, according to definition. And you very soon are taught to accept yourself as a certain kind of a character. You are told who you are. For example, you may remember as children when you went out to play with other children, and you came home mimicking the mannerisms of some other child. And your parents being disturbed by this, because they said, that's not you, Johnny, that's Peter. Because everybody wants to identify you and tell you who you are. And this grows and grows as you go through life. More and more, people are trying to identify you. Like they say, are you a Republican or are you a Democrat? Are you a Presbyterian, Episcopalian, a Baptist, a Roman Catholic? Come on now, what are you? Tell us. And people, in other words, persuade you into accepting certain roles. And it's so effective, this, because you eventually come to believe in it all. The Chinese devised, however, a philosophy for those who came to this point. And it is, as I said, the counterpart of Confucianism. And it's called Taoism. This character in Chinese is pronounced Tao. T-A-O. You would think it was pronounced Tao or Tao, but we've Romanized Chinese in such a way that only those in the know can decide how it's pronounced. We should have spelled it D-O-W, you see, but it's T-A-O. And this character here means the course of nature, the way, the flow of things. And so this is the philosophy of the way of nature. Now, I must start out by saying that Tao cannot be defined. You may think it's rather strange that I'm going to talk about something concerning which nothing can really be said. The book that is basic to Taoism, called the Tao Te Ching, that is the book of the way and its power, starts out by saying, the Tao which can be described or spoken is not the eternal Tao. And then he goes on to write a book about it, which you may think rather illogical. But this is something very important to understand, that the Tao means that which is absolutely basic. It therefore means the basic energy of the universe. It means what you are really, your true self. But in just the same way as you can't bite your own teeth, and in just the same way that you can't look into your own eyes without using a mirror, you cannot define your real self. The hand can't catch hold of itself. The tip of the finger can't touch the tip of itself. And therefore, I'm sorry, but we cannot make an object out of what we really are. And that is why any conception of who you really are that you may entertain is wrong. So if you think of yourself as an ego, that is to say, as a separate center of consciousness and action that is somehow closed up in a bag of skin, this is a false conception. You are not that. You are pretending to be that. You are playing at that. But what you really are utterly escapes definition, and therefore comes under the category of something metaphysical, that is to say, beyond physis, beyond nature in the sense of what can be classified.
Okay, we're going to continue doing this brief reading here of the Book of Wisdom or Folly. This is on the conformity of the magician, De Conformitate Magi. See to it, therefore, O my son, that thou in thy working dost no violence to the whole will of the all, or to the will common to all those beings or bicomings that are of one general nature with thee, or to thine own particular will. For first of all, thou art necessarily moved toward the one end from thine own station, but secondly, thou art moved toward the end proper to thine own race, caste, family, and by virtue of thy birth. And these are, I may say it, conditions or limits of thine own individual will. Thou dost laugh? What sayest thou of the revolutionary will? Err not, my son. The magus, even as the poet, is the expression of the true will of his fellows, and his success is his proof. As it is written in the book of the law, for his work is to free men from the fetters of a false or superannuated will, revealing to them in measure attuned to their present needs, their true natures. And the poets de poetis. For this reason is the poet called an incarnation of the zeitgeist, that is, of the spirit or will of his period. So every poet is also a prophet, because when that which he saith is recognized as the expression of their own thought by men, they translate this into act, so that in the parlance of folk vulgar and ignorant, that which he foretold is come to pass. Now then, the poet is interpreter of the hieroglyphs of the hidden will of man in many a matter, some light, some deep, as it may be given unto him to do. Moreover, it is not altogether in the word of any poem, but in the quintessential flavor of the poet, that thou mayst seek this prophecy. And this is an art most necessary to every statesman, Who but Shelley foretold the fall of Christianity and the organization of labor and the freedom of woman? Who but Nietzsche declared the principle at the root of the world war? See thou clearly then that in these men were the keys of the dark gates of the future. Should not the kings and their ministers have taken heed thereto, fulfilling their word without conflict? And the Magi of the AA, in whom the word takes flesh, de magis ordinis AA quibus caro fit verbum. Now, O my son, the incarnation of a poet is particular and not universal. He saith indeed true things, but not the things of all truth. And that these may be said, it is necessary that one take human flesh, become a magus in our holy order. He then is called the Logos, or Logos Ionos, that is to say, the word of the eon or age, because he is verily that word, and thus may he be known, because he hath it given unto him to prepare the quintessence of the will of God, that is of man, in its fullness and wholeness, comprehending all planes, so that his law is simple and radical, penetrating all space from its single light. For though his words be many, yet is his word one and alone, and by this word he createth man anew, in an essential form of life, so that he is changed in his inmost knowledge of himself, and this change worketh outwards little by little unto its visible effects. 69. On the Magi of old, first of Lao Tse. De magis temporis antiquae, imprimis de Lao Tse. It may be unto thy profit, O my son, if I relate unto thee the secret history of those who have gone before me in this grade of magis, so far as their memory hath remained among mankind. For what would it avail thee should I recount the deeds of those whom I indeed may know, but thou not? Thou knowest well how I keep me from all taint of fable, or of any word unproven or undemonstrable. First then I speak of Lao Tse, whose word was Tao. Hereof have I already written much unto thee, because his doctrine hath been lost or misinterpreted, and it is most needful to restore it. For this Tao is the true nature of things, being itself a way or going, that is a kinetic and not a static conception. Also he taught this way of harmony in will, which I myself have sought to show thee in this epistle. So then this Tao is truth, and the way of truth, and therefore was Lao Tse Logos of his eon, and his true word or name was Tao.
What can be described, what can be put in a box and said it's either animal, vegetable, or mineral, it's either long or short, black or white, temporal or eternal, any category you choose to apply is inadequate to this. So do you mind if we start out with something we can't say anything about at all? But it's fundamental.